大家好，今天是2025年3月31日，我们来看一下这个信号门群聊泄露事件。我们先了解一下事情的始末，然后我们再来看一下这个川普的秘书的回应啊，然后我们再来看一下这个万斯表示这个事情会淡化，但是对这个欧洲的这个想法不会消退。
美国高级官员在聊天软件上讨论军事机密，不小心拉了个记者进群，这事儿大家应该都有所耳闻了。这个记者一开始看到这里全都是顶着国家高层名字的群成员，在那儿讨论袭击也门，他还以为是什么整蛊诈骗，就好比你突然被拉进了一个群聊，你一看那些群成员都叫什么鹿晗、王一博、迪丽热巴了，他们说啥你都不敢当回事儿。直到没几天，也门真的被轰炸了。过程跟群里策划的一毛一样，作战细节甚至精确到了分钟。群成员开始欢呼，并且跟咱们这儿一样排队点赞。记者终于意识到，这他妈居然是真的，反手就把聊天记录给公布了。各位高层一开始极力否认，还去翻这个媒体的黑历史，企图证伪。记者直接上节目打擂台，公布了更多的聊天记录供群众吃瓜。随后白宫只好承认了。听上去很荒谬是吧？但因为过于荒谬，以至于它是真的。拉群的大哥叫华尔兹，是总统国家安全事务助理。他其实并不认识他拉的这个记者，只是存错号码了，以为这是另一个本来应该进群的成员。他不仅拉错了人，还3天都没有发现问题。
It's a part that we were embarrassing, yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
在东窗事发之后，更是大骂记者是败类。好，这脸皮比我三舅老爷的鞋底子还厚。以一己之力带火3个 emoji 题，还倒打一耙。
我们再来看一下这个白宫秘书的发言。
President Trump is truly turning America back into a manufacturing superpower. Yesterday, President Trump marked National Medal of Honor Day by meeting with 21 of our nation's bravest heroes and incredible patriots who have been awarded the highest military honor. Beautiful picture. The president also signed a historic executive order to protect the integrity of American elections by strengthening voter citizenship verification and banning foreign nationals from interfering in U.S. elections. These are the common sense solutions that only Democrats could oppose. But voters deserve elections they can trust, and critical confidence is being restored thanks to President Trump's leadership. Later this afternoon in the East Room, President Trump will mark Women's History Month by honoring the exceptional women around our country, including the highly talented women in his administration and his cabinet. And on an additional scheduling update, the president will hold a press conference in the Oval Office today at 4:00 p.m. to announce tariffs on the auto industry. And I will leave that to him to make that announcement later. Unfortunately, all of this good is happening for our country. This administration is working hard on behalf of the American public every day, but the mainstream media continues to be focused on a sensationalized story from the failing Atlantic magazine that is falling apart by the hour. Here are the facts. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this matter, and the National Security Council immediately said, alongside the White House counsel's office, that they are looking into how a reporter's number was inadvertently added to this messaging thread. We have said all along that no classified material was sent on this messaging thread. There were no locations, no sources, or methods revealed, and there were certainly no war plans discussed. The Atlantic has even admitted this themselves. Their release of these internal messages validates the truth, which we have been saying all along. If this story proves anything, it proves that Democrats and their propagandists in the mainstream media know how to fabricate, orchestrate, and disseminate a misinformation campaign quite well. And there's arguably no one in the media who loves manufacturing and pushing hoaxes more than Jeffrey Goldberg. Goldberg is an anti-Trump hater. He is a registered Democrat. Goldberg's wife is also a registered Democrat and a big Democrat donor who used to work under who? Hillary Clinton. This is the same Jeffrey Goldberg who infamously lied about weapons of mass destruction to get us into the Iraq War, which cost trillions of dollars and thousands of American soldiers. And how else has Goldberg discredited himself? By absurdly claiming that President Trump was Vladimir Putin during the 2016 campaign, by peddling the Russia hoax that tried to hijack President Trump's first term, by inventing the suckers and losers hoax to help Joe Biden in the 2020 election, by peddling a hoax about President Trump involving Gold Star families to help Kamala Harris in the 2024 election, which our campaign at the time vigorously denied. Jeffrey Goldberg didn't care. There's more, but we don't have all day, and we can now add this signal hoax to this very long list. The real story here is the overwhelming success of President Trump's decisive military action against Houthi terrorists. On March 15th, President Trump ordered a series of military operations against the terrorist Houthis to defend U.S. shipping assets in the Red Sea, restore freedom of navigation for international shipping, and defend the United States from enemy threats. United States forces successfully struck dozens of targets across Houthi-controlled territory. And as a result of these actions, several Houthi leaders were killed, including the Houthi drone chief, his deputy, and several of their drone experts and other key leaders. We also destroyed command and controlled facilities, weapons manufacturing facilities, and advanced weapons storage locations. And it's important to remember why this powerful action took place in the first place. Because of Joe Biden's incompetence and pathetic weakness on the world stage for years, the Houthi terrorists grew emboldened. Immediately after taking office in 2021, Joe Biden removed the Iran-backed Houthis from the foreign terrorist organization and specifically designated global terrorist list. Did anybody in this room ask the Biden administration at the time why they made such a stupid mistake? This reckless action undid the designation put in place by President Trump during his first term, and what followed was predictable and devastating. The Houthis targeted U.S. military ships and aircraft, hit commercial ships, including U.S.-flagged vessels, threatened our personnel overseas, and attacked our allies in the region. This resulted in more than a year of U.S.-flagged commercial ships being prevented from safely sailing through the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden. This had a massive negative impact on global trade of the economic security of the United States. Joe Biden was the commander-in-chief, and he sat on his hands while the United States of America was bullied and embarrassed by terrorists. President Trump and his team are putting a stop to these threats and restoring American strength around the world. The Trump peace through strength approach means no terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels from freely sailing the waterways of the world. But unfortunately, this is not what the Democrats and the media want to talk about. They are focused on a coordinated campaign to try and sow chaos in this White House. And this has been the most successful first 2 months of any administration ever, which is exactly why they are doing this. We are not going to bend in the face of this insincere outrage. And here's just one example of how bad faith the Democrats' criticisms are. Democrat Senator Mark Warner is hysterical over the use of Signal, which is an approved decrypted app, and the killing of Houthi terrorists. But Senator Warner himself used Signal to work with a lobbyist for a Russian oligarch to connect with the disgraced Steele dossier author who started the Russia hoax, which Jeffrey Goldberg later reported on. How ironic. We're not going to lose focus of the bottom line, which is that Joe Biden's weakness enabled and emboldened Houthi terrorists, and President Trump's strength and resolve eliminated those terrorists. Here in our new media seat today, we have Lindsay Keith. She is the managing editor for Merit TV and serves as their White House correspondent. Merit TV launched 1 year ago and creates and distributes content across diverse platforms. We're glad to have you with us, Lindsay. Please kick us off.
Thank you, Caroline.
白宫秘书卡罗琳啊，很有气质啊，给人感觉很不错啊，他这个很睿智，很机灵，很喜欢他。再来看一下这个群聊事件泄露之后，整个的这个混乱情况。然后副总统万斯也是指出啊，这个事情的这个恶性影响会消散的，但是他们对欧洲的态度是不会改变的。我们来看一下。
Anybody else?
Should the defense secretary
What country are you? Wait, what country are you from?
The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
This was the moment that Martha Kellner, a Sky News reporter from the UK, attempted to ask Marjorie Taylor Greene a straight question about the leaked messages about missile strikes in Yemen March 15th.
Let me tell you something. Do you care about people from your country? What about all the women that are raped by migrants?
Do you care
No,
about
by No, do you care? Okay, you're done.
Ms. Taylor-Greene's fevered response is just another example of the fallout after editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, was inadvertently added to a group chat on messaging platform Signal between, amongst others, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Vice President J.D. Vance.
Nobody's texting war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information.
But the timing of aspects of the operation against the Houthis was included in the group chat. And that means, according to some members of Congress, that it should have been classified.
Information shall be classified if its unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause describable damage to national security. This includes military plans, weapon systems, or operations.
For context, Fox News' national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin highlighted some of those timings. They were posted by the Defense Secretary 2 hours before the airstrikes began.
12:15 Eastern, F-18s launch, first strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched.
Everyone here knows that the Russians or the Chinese could have gotten all of that information. And they could have passed it on to the Houthis, who easily could have repositioned weapons and altered their plans to knock down planes or sink ships.
Mr. Himes is right that in the wrong hands, the level of detail from Mr. Hegseth could have compromised the mission. But it didn't, and the Houthi strikes were a success and represent the best of Mr. Trump's instincts on restoring deterrence.
It was sensitive information, not classified, and inadvertently released. And what we should be talking about is it was a very successful mission. Our world is now safer because of that mission.
Nevertheless, some Democrats want action.
Leader Jeffries also sent a letter to the president yesterday calling for Pete Hegseth to be fired immediately.
I agree he should be fired.
Do we care about the mainstream media? Do we care about The Atlantic?
What's making matters worse is that some of those involved are trying to brush this off as a media hoax, rather than just admitting a mistake was made and moving on.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again.
It also detracts from arguably the bigger story, which is that both Michael Waltz and Pete Hegseth backed the president and US leadership, while J.D. Vance was a voice for retreat, even when Mr. Trump directed otherwise.
In this chat, there was a moment where J.D. Vance questioned POTUS's judgment about this Houthi bombing, and then he had to be talked back.
The key exchange began on March 14th, the day before US strikes on Yemen. Signal user Michael Waltz wrote, "Team, you should have a statement of conclusions with taskings per the president's guidance." But not all preferred to take that guidance. "I think we're making a mistake," the user J.D. Vance replied, going on to say 3% of US trade runs through the Suez, the canal blocked by Houthi fire, while 40% of European trade does. To their credit, in response, both Messrs. Hegseth and Waltz pointed out the risks of waiting. The National Security Advisor explaining the damage to global trade and the limits of Europe's navies. The Defense Secretary putting in writing what he made public afterwards.
Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence, we will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis.
Back to the thread and the response from Mr. Vance, "I just hate bailing Europe out again," he wrote. Mr. Hegseth agreed. "I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic."
The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and J.D. Vance, the Vice President, said that the Europeans were freeloading. Do you agree with that assessment?
Do you really want me to answer that? Yeah, I think they've been freeloading. The European Union's been absolutely terrible to us on trade, terrible. And as you know, NATO, I got them to pay hundreds of billions of dollars. They were way behind.
The lesson Europeans and many friends elsewhere will take from this episode is that officials at the top of the Trump administration think the US relationship isn't based on common interests or values. It's closer to a protection racket. It's another reason why many of America's allies may conclude they can no longer trust the US in a crisis.
I don't care about your fake news. Do you have a relevant question? Yeah, this is an American journalist. Thank you.
I'm an American, and I'd like to hear your answer to what she's asked.
I'm not answering her question.